Inner Peace, Better Health, we explore a question that quietly shapes our lives. Can you be wildly ambitious and deeply grateful at the same time? I'm your host, Shreya, and our guest, Jack Wagner, says yes, and he is living proof of that. Jack is the most of the Grateful podcast, a neuroscience student, a marketing leader, and a cultural driven climbing brand, and a seeker building wisdom as he climbs. She is young, thoughtful, and not pretending to have it all figured out, which makes this conversation all the more real. If you have ever wrestled with how to chase big dreams without losing your soul, this one is for you. So, welcome, Jack. I'm honored
Thank
to
you,
have you
Shreya.
on my show.
Thank you so much. That was a wonderful intro.
Thank you so much. And Jack, you talk about the duality of gratitude and ambition. For many, this feels like opposite forces. How do you personally hold space for both?
Yeah. So what I've realized is that they don't have to be opposing forces, right?
Mhm.
A lot of people think that the most ambitious people, they get that ambition from a low. So when you finally hit rock bottom, that's when you can go. But I don't think that that ambition is sustainable because at some point you're going to hit a point where you're no longer at a low. You feel like you don't have something smacking you in the butt, keeping you going, right? So, a more sustainable way of going for goals and being ambitious is to realize what am I grateful for in my life right now that I want to build upon, that I want an abundance of. Because a lot of people see gratitude, they conflate it with with staying here, with saying this is enough, right? But saying this is enough doesn't have to mean I don't want more, right?
Yes, I truly agree. And thank you for sharing this with our listeners. And has there ever been a time when ambition drowned out your gratitude or vice versa?
Yes, uh, all the time. The reason that I created this is because it feels like uh, something that's going to cure the problem that I have the most in my life, which is that my ambition, my constant looking to the future is going to drown out the present, which is all we ever live. We never are out of the present, right? So if I'm spending my entire life driving forward, saying I want this in the future,
Mhm.
uh, I became scared. I'm going to miss out on this present moment. So that's when I started to lean into the gratitude aspect of it. Um, but even like 2 days ago, I worked probably 14 or more hours, and it's summertime, and I was like, "What am I doing?" And that that is where like it was just a day where my ambition drowned stuff out. But sometimes it's a sacrifice, right? Because the next day, yesterday was a great day where I was able to say, I'm gonna take a pause on a lot of work and I'm gonna have fun. I'm gonna reconnect with myself, center myself so I can find that balance again. Because balance is not a static thing. I think people think of balance and think about balancing a spoon on their finger or something and how it's a static point. But in our lives, balance is not that way. It's always shifting. It's not something that we can strive for and we're there and we can just stay on that path. No, as different experiences pop up in your life, you're going to have to shift around. It's like being on, there's something called a balance board, not very common, but it's this board and this little thing, almost like my water bottle under it. And you have to shift around trying to balance on it. But it's balance is dynamic.
Yes, yes, definitely. And the balance is literally tricky. And it's so powerful to hear you say that we don't have to pick either or. We can be
Mm,
grounded and still hungry. And also, you are a neuroscience student, applying
yeah.
science to mindset and motivation. What have you learned about how the brain handles purpose and drive?
So I'm actually starting my official studies in neuroscience starting in the fall. So I haven't taken any real classes on it yet, but I've learned a lot from many different sources. And One of the things I find the most interesting is our brain, we can take over because right now what we think of as the self, which is a very abstract concept,
Hmm.
for most people is all up here, right? If you're trying to pay attention, if you meditate, if you close your eyes, you're like, wow, my existence is very up here in my head. But sometimes I'll just take a look and I'll be like, oh, that's my toe down there. That is a part of who I am. Um, and so when you realize that you can also your brain doesn't have to control you, I think that's a little uh abstract tie in there, but a lot of us are controlled by the things in our brain right now. So, like, for example, social media addiction. If I were to pull out my phone and just start scrolling, like that is your
Mhm.
brain controlling you because most people don't want to spend hours a day scrolling on TikTok, right? And so, what I've learned is the way that you can take back your brain and you can be more in control of your actions. So, you can be doing things that you want to do toward the goals that you want to achieve is you have to push yourself to do hard things. And by that, I mean, wake up at the hour you don't want to wake up at. Make yourself do it, even when everything in here is fighting no. Say, I'm not my brain. I'm
Mhm.
going to push through that.
Yeah.
Or take a cold shower or cold plunge. Cold water exposure is huge for that. Or go for a run if you hate running. Do something purposefully that you hate to do and do that consistently and you won't hate doing it anymore. You're not going to be miserable while doing it. Even if you hate to do the thing, that act of pushing through feels so liberating that you're not going to hate it. And two, you're building up resilience so you can take back control over your brain and your body.
Yeah, yes, and that's such a deep insight that you have just shared with us. And do you think that our brains are wired more for survival than fulfillment? And how do we override that?
Yeah, so 100%. Our brains are very wired towards survival because on 2,000, 3,000 years, so much has changed in our
Mhm.
species. But that's not a long time for evolution. So when you see things like anxiety, anxiety is a survival mechanism. It's looking for the bad things so that we can survive. Because 3,000 years ago, if we're walking in the forest and you see a squirrel, but your brain says, that's a bear, I need to run. That's that's good because if it was a bear, you're screwed. Nowadays, if you're walking in and you're looking on Instagram and you see so and so didn't follow me back. Oh no. And it all in the same reaction that you thought was a bear is now because someone didn't follow you back on a social media platform.
Mm.
That's where our brains and anxiety and everything in our brains, they've not caught up to our society. And so that's really hard because we're wired to survive when survival isn't as it doesn't require as many resources nowadays. Um, and so to override that, as you said, I mean, I think that we're always going to be somewhat programmed like that, and that's not a
Mhm.
bad thing. That's just the way we are. But I think again, pushing yourself to do hard things and focusing on the good things in your life because we are inherently wired to focus on the negatives uh so that we can survive. So if you consciously say, I'm going to focus on the positive things. I had a guest on my podcast last week and he said that he looks at every hour in his day and picks out the best thing that happened and writes all those down so that when he looks back on his day he remembers the best things about every hour, right? um so if we're consciously thinking about what are the best parts of my day, that can rewire our brain to think positively instead of thinking immediately about the negatives.
Yes, that's so beautiful. And the thing you have just said that writing down the best thing that we have done in the day, it's so beautiful. I think most people just chase success without understanding the biology behind their burnout or blocks.
Mm,
And You have interviewed so many thinkers on the Grateful podcast. So, what is one conversation that shifted your understanding of what it means to live meaningfully?
That's a great question, and it's perfect timing for that question because I just yesterday released an episode with a man named Joshua Dean Church, and when he was in his 20s, he built a $20 million company, ice bath company, and 3 years later, he had to shut it down because it did not go the way he expected.
Mhm.
And for so many people, that's like you have your dream happen and then you have the worst part, you have it stripped away from you immediately.
Mhm.
And I can't imagine how devastating it would be for so many people. But for him, he's just taking it and he's learning from it. He's saying that's my ultimate learning experience. Uh, and that was just so impactful for me as a very driven person because I think a lot of people would really collapse after that. It takes a lot of work to build a company that's successful. And to have it stripped away from you like that, really out of your control, must be such a horrible feeling. But I've been able to talk with so many people on my podcast who have had probably looking at their lives one of the worst things possible that could happen to them. And they've used that as a catalyst for the best things in their life. So yeah, they don't want it to happen again, right? They would never go through that thing again. But that thing is what caused all the best things in their lives. And I think that is one of the most profound things that you could do in your life. Turn the worst moment into an opportunity for your best moments.
Yes, that's so beautiful. And also, how do you decide that voices and topics for your audience needs to hear most?
That's a good question. I think that I honestly go a lot with what I want, what I'm very interested in, because I've tried to build an audience that's similar to me. And so uh in Rick Rubin's book, what's it called? Uh the art of being. I'm not sure. It's about art, and music and different production of art in general. And he says that you have to create for yourself first, and you'll build an audience of
Mhm.
people like you. I've really, really embodied that in my podcast. When I'm choosing guests, I'm like, oh, this one, I really want to talk to this person. Okay, hopefully my audience agrees. And sometimes I've thought I'm not as interested in talking to this person, but
Mhm.
it's certain topics that I think uh my community really needs to hear, like especially people around my age, because I have a younger audience. Um, but yeah, it's a lot of just personal. I like this person.
Yeah, I think that curiosity you bring as a host, that desire to learn out loud, is what makes our platform or your platform feels so alive. And
Yeah, thank
also faith is another thread in your journey. So what does faith look like for you today, not just spiritually, but in your process, your timing, your growth?
So, yeah, I am I'd say I'm very faithful, but I'm not a part of any organized religion. Um,
Mhm.
I'm just very, very curious, and I read a lot of Buddhist books, of Hindu books. I have like explored Christianity and Judaism on my podcast. I'm very, very curious, but I've tended to believe that I do believe that there is a higher power. I tend to like think about it subconsciously, but I have no idea what it is. And I think that's okay. I don't think you have to know what it is, but I just have this faith that everything will work out. I have a faith in myself, which I think is beautiful because in every religion, if you look across everything, everyone says that God or uh, energy or whatever it's talking about, whatever that power is, everyone says that it's inside of you. That's a common thread. And so I do believe having that faith in yourself as much as you have faith in the higher power is so important because you are a part of it. We're all one, right? And we all have little parts of God that make up the main God, if that's the word you want to use. Um, yeah, so it's really faith has definitely grounded me in a way where I feel comfortable taking risks because I believe that everything will work out the way it's supposed to.
Yeah, and that's so beautiful. And has there been a moment when faith showed up stronger than logic?
Yes, that's very often. Um, I came up with this thing a few weeks ago where I think we make the biggest decisions in our lives based on faith, based on intuition. And when people ask us why we did them, we come up with logical answers that aren't really the answers to cover up the fact that we did it with faith and intuition. Because a lot of times in society, we're pressured to make logical decisions. But and that's okay because a lot of people aren't in touch with their intuition in a way where they can listen to it clearly, I think. But when you can listen to your intuition, it always knows. Just think back to any situation in your life where you had a gut feeling. I've never had a true gut feeling that I was listening to that was wrong. And that is so powerful. Even if other people have had different experiences, I know for myself, my gut is so right. So when I'm making, especially a big decision about the next steps I'm going to take in my life, that's the first place I go.
Yeah, and that trust is the unseen. What I think that's often where the peace lies, especially when the path isn't so clear yet. And you just say it so beautifully that. And also, you are still on the climb, building in real time. So, what advice would you give to others who are trying to balance progress with presence?
You got to trust the process and you can't be impatient. And you're hearing that from one of the most impatient people I've ever met, myself. Um, but you can't rush anything because
Mm,
the entire you're not there is no destination because once you reach that destination, humans live in relativity and you'll create another destination. That's inevitable. Your goal is not to mitigate the fact that you're going to try to create another destination. You will. That's just how it works, right? And so all you have is the journey. All you have is the present moment. So on your journey, on your climb, you have to make sure it's something you love. And that's why it's so important because we're going to be built through this experience. There are a lot of shortcuts in society now, right? There's ways you have people that buy followers on Instagram, you have people that buy things on like buy downloads on podcasts, you have people
mm,
that uh have other shortcuts to get to the top. Those those are very stupid because in life it is all the journey. You learn nothing on that.
mm,
And to come back to the interview I had with uh, Josh that I talked about that I released yesterday, he because he didn't take any shortcuts to get to the top, and he built a $20 million company, but then he lost it all. He has the skills to do it again because
mm,
he didn't take shortcuts. He knows how to do it, and so skills are the most important thing you can build in life. And if you're just going slowly and learning all along the way, not rushing to the very top as fast as you can, you're going to find so much out that you can use in the future. And maybe you realize, oh, my path right now is not the path I want to be on forever. So if you slow down, you can take a turn. You can open the door when it appears, right? You can step through it. And balancing presence, you just have to take time for yourself because if you are not at your best, your product, your work is not going to be at its best. If you work a 15-hour day, you can't work an effective 15-hour day the next day. I just don't think that's possible. Alex Ramosi might argue me on this, but there's just, you need to prioritize yourself. So maybe whether that be 10 minutes in the morning and maybe a hike in the afternoon just something for yourself to get your thoughts clear, and to have fun and enjoy the day, and then keep working.
Yes. That's so beautiful. And thank you for sharing this with our listeners. I think this is a lot of listeners needed these words that not to rush when you are unfolding something. And this is a wonderful conversation with you because you are a wonderful person. And thank you for sharing all your knowledge, your experience, your stories. And if after this my listeners want to connect with you, then what's the best way?
So I'm on every platform, but I think the best way you could connect with me after this is my podcast. So the Grateful Podcast with Jack Wagner, you can find it anywhere. I love YouTube because I post more than just my podcast there. I post clips on Instagram. But yeah, if you search the Grateful Podcast with Jack Wagner, you'll find me.
Yes, and I will make sure to attach all the details and links below so that the listeners can find them easily and get in touch with you and listen more from you. Because
Thanks.
you just shared so much, and I'm really honored to have you on my show. And to my listeners, Jack reminds us that growth and grace can work hand in hand. That we don't have to sacrifice our peace for our purpose or our ambition for our authenticity. His journey is a mirror for all of us climbing with intention, wondering if we are doing it right. If this episode sparked reflection or clarity, share it with someone else who is walking on their own edge. And remember, gratitude isn't the opposite of drive, it is the fuel for a meaningful ascent. Keep climbing, keep grateful.